Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are taking on a very specific mission, one that's just packed with emotional weight and, huge reader expectations.
hmm
We are doing a deep dive into the detailed reviews and notes for Colleen Hoover's sequel, It Starts With Us.
A book people were waiting a long, long time for.
Exactly. So for those of you who read the first book, the one that, it started so many conversations, and you're desperate to know if Lily and Atlas finally get their piece, this is for you.
Right.
We've synthesized all the critical reception to give you a shortcut to understanding its tone, its plot, and why it's getting such a powerful, if kind of split, reaction.
And you really can't talk about this book without first talking about the massive shadow of It Ends With Us. That book was a cultural moment.
A huge one.
It dealt with really raw, complex topics.
hmm
So a sequel to a story that heavy, it just carries this immense pressure to deliver, real closure.
And what's fascinating here from the sources is that it starts immediately after the first one ends. No time jump.
Yeah, that detail is so important. That tells you right away that the focus is on the immediate aftermath, the messy part, not just some far-off, perfect, happy ending.
Let's unpack that. So, section 1, the core mission. The book is, at its heart, about Lily Bloom and Atlas Corrigan. Finally getting their chance.
Free from the shadow of Ryle. The sources are so clear on this. The sequel is all about building a peaceful, healthy relationship after years of just incredible suffering.
It's the payoff. It's what everyone was waiting for.
It is. And that desire for peace, it completely dictates the biggest shift in the storytelling. So, where the first book was heavy, tragic, defined by trauma, it starts with Us is described everywhere as more healing-focused, less tragic. The whole story is built around emotional recovery.
Which is such a vital piece of context, right? Because if you go in expecting those same gut-wrenching twists, you're just going to miss the point of what this book is trying to do.
Completely. But of course, that happy ending can't just exist in a bubble.
Right, because Ryle still exists.
Ryle still exists. The secondary plot is the reality of co-parenting with him, because they share a daughter. So the drama isn't some manufactured plot device.
No, it's the day-to-day reality. It's him struggling to accept Lily's new relationship and, well, still having some pretty significant anger issues.
Exactly. So the book spends a lot of time on these really realistic challenges. How do you manage firm boundaries? How do you avoid emotional triggers?
The logistics of it all. When one person is that unpredictable.
Precisely. It's trying to balance the soft, safe relationship between Lily and Atlas with the hard reality of Ryle's presence.
Okay, so the mission was healing, but did it actually work? Did it provide that catharsis? Let's get into the strengths in section 2.
On its own terms, yes. It absolutely succeeded. The focus is just razor sharp on that emotional recovery. It's lauded everywhere for being softer, gentler. It's about
Yes.
safety, stability, and what one review called gentle love, which I thought was
He's a
perfect.
great phrase for it.
So for readers who felt that heartbreak for Lily and just desperately wanted her to find some joy, this book absolutely delivers that payoff.
And I think what really stands out, maybe the biggest strength for a lot of fans, is the deep dive we finally get into Atlas Corrigan's character.
Oh, absolutely.
In the first book, he was more of an idea, a memory. Here, he gets so much more depth. We get his childhood, his family, his own fears. It explains how he became the man he is.
He goes from being this romantic ideal to being the actual beating heart of the story.
Yes.
And he's patient, he's kind, and most of all, he is so respectful of Lily's boundaries and her needs as a survivor. His backstory gives him this anchor. You see that his maturity was earned.
And that realism you mentioned with the co-parenting, that really grounds the story, right? It stops it from just becoming a total fantasy.
It does. And the specifics of that struggle are key. Lily isn't just dealing with a minor annoyance. She's managing these unpredictable outbursts.
She's balancing her own fear with what's best for her daughter.
Yeah, and constantly having to defend her choices against someone who, doesn't really take accountability. It shows that healing isn't just this straight line to happiness.
It's the kind of thing that really resonates with people who've been in similar situations. It makes the happy parts feel earned. And the writing style itself, Hoover's style, is still there. It's simple, it's addictive. The reviews call it an easy, fast, emotional read. You just fly through it.
Because you're so invested.
Totally. Now, let's look at the other side of the coin. Section 3, the criticisms. Because the first book was so intense, expectations were just sky high. Where did it fall short for some people?
Well, the main critique is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
If you came in wanting that same gut punch intensity as it ends with us, you're probably going to be disappointed.
And that's because of the trade-off, right? The focus on healing meant less room for drama.
Exactly. The sources say that because the goal is stability, the story is far more romantic than dramatic. It's less driven by plot twists, there's limited high-stakes conflict.
So for readers who think high stakes make a good story, this felt maybe a little predictable, a little light.
It's less about gasping at what happens next and more about just sighing with relief.
I get that. And that lightness brings up a really interesting point about Ryle's character. He remains toxic, which feels realistic.
Sadly, yes.
But a lot of readers wanted more. They felt his part of the story was repetitive. Like, was there a missed opportunity to explore the consequences for him on a deeper level?
That's a fascinating split. Because on one hand, keeping Ryle the same really underscores the reality that abusers often don't change.
Right.
But on the other hand, focusing so much on Lily's happiness means you don't spend as much time on his complexity. So for some, he felt more like a plot device this time around.
And then there's the perfection problem, the criticism that Atlas is,
Yes.
well, almost too perfect.
Yes, that he has basically no flaws,
Yeah.
which makes him feel less like a real person and more like, wish fulfillment.
But is that really a flaw in a book like this? I mean, if the first book was all about chaos and violence.
Doesn't the sequel almost require him to be a perfect safe harbor? Maybe the criticism just misunderstands the book's purpose. It's not about exploring flawed romance.
It's about providing total, absolute emotional safety.
Exactly. The perfection is functional. It's a thematic choice, not a failure.
Though for some critics, that feeling meant the book worked more like bonus content, like a long epilogue rather than a full novel.
It really just speaks to how invested the audience was.
Yeah.
The emotional debt from book one was so huge, the sequel had to focus on paying it back.
Which perfectly sets us up for our final section, the verdict. So, taking all of this together, the healing, the stability, the perfect hero, what's the final word?
The consensus is that this is a comforting, hopeful, and, necessary continuation. It gives Lily and Atlas the peace they absolutely deserve. It did what it set out to do.
And the rating reflects that. It's a solid 4.0 out of 5 stars, but usually with that note. Beautiful, emotional, but lighter than expected.
Right. The emotional core is there, but the high drama is not.
So we can pretty clearly define who this book is for. If you need that closure after the first book, if you just wanted to see Atlas and Lily find a safe, slow love, this is for you.
It's the warm blanket after the storm.
And conversely, who should maybe skip it?
Well, if you need that same intensity, the huge plot twists, the deep psychological drama of the first book, you might find this one a little too quiet. It's not a roller coaster.
It's the walk through the garden after you get off the ride.
Perfect way to put it.
So this deep dive really shows that the sequel made a deliberate choice to trade intensity for stability. It prioritized emotional resolution over plot conflict.
And if we look at the bigger picture, it really highlights the complexity of co-parenting after trauma. That real-world balancing act is maybe the most resonant part of the whole story.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to consider. Knowing that the whole goal here was closure, that it was basically written because readers demanded it, does the criticism that Atlas is too perfect actually matter?
Or is that level of safe, reliable perfection exactly what a story like this, following that much damage, fundamentally needs to satisfy its audience?
Something to think about as you decide whether to dive into Lily and Atlas's new beginning yourself.